Howdy guys, welcome back to Deal by Deal, episode number 7. This is a single family home in 2010. It's a large home. It was a foreclosure and everything was stripped out of it, like the interior doors, the light fixtures, the plumbing was pulled out, or a lot of it, like the hot water heater and the well pressure tank and appliances. So it was basically just a shell of a house with the drywall, needed flooring, the trim, the everything. So me and my brother Nick were originally going to partner with another couple to go in on this project, but at last minute it didn't work out because they had other engagements by the time we negotiated the price down to where we needed it. And so the other couple who was going to partner with us actually lent us the money as a private capital investment into our deal. So I did a lot of deals over the years where I was using other people's money, paying them for it, so they're still investors into the deal, just on a different level. And so they got paid good interest and we got to do the project. We purchased it for about $70,000 and the private lenders lent us about $100,000 if I remember right. So there was $30,000 left over when we closed on the purchase to put towards the house. That wasn't quite enough. We did still need to put in another 20 or so of our own money before we ended up refinancing the property. We wanted to sell the property originally and just take a nice big chunk, but it wasn't selling for what we thought it was worth or what we thought we needed to get out of it. So we decided to retain it as a rental at that time. So we refinanced the private loan into a traditional, conventional loan of some sort. And between the closing costs and the cost of the money and the holding costs and everything, we were into that project for about $120,000. And it took about 6 months, which was quite a bit longer than we anticipated, but that's how it goes. And then we ended up putting a tenant in it, and we got, I think, around $1,900 or maybe $2,000 a month. And our mortgage was closer to half that back when interest rates were a lot less and the mortgage was only $120. So even with the taxes and insurance and stuff, we were cash flowing, I think maybe $800, maybe $1,000 a month or somewhere in that range, which was really nice. So we had a few different tenants come and go over the years. I think we had 5 or 6 years that we had it as a rental. So our last tenants didn't take very good care of it, and I wasn't being a very good landlord by checking up on the property. And what happened is they were away for like an extended holiday weekend. I think it was over Christmas or New Year's, and the property froze up. I think from power outages, stuff froze and broke. It had older piping in it that was like the plastic pipe, that not the new stuff that's hard to freeze and break, but some of the old PVC broke, flooded the house, and they weren't even there to turn off the water or call us. Like, it flooded big time for several days. And that is why you have insurance on your properties. And so we had a restoration company come in and dry the place out, which took a lot of extra work because as they were trying to dry it out, the area continued to have power outages. So it took a lot more time and a lot more money than it should have. Those restoration and dry out companies charge a lot, and it took quite a while because we couldn't keep the power on for the grid there. So, and then of course they had to come in and eventually they had to pull out drywall to make sure it was dry behind it, and we had to get new flooring and countertops that were wet and warped for days. So we ended up getting the total cost of the project was almost $130,000. Not all of that was flood damage, so some of that we did pay out of our own pocket because anywhere that was flood damage, they were redoing the paint and flooring, but there were a few areas that it wasn't flood damaged and they were also due. So while the professional contractors were there, we went ahead and had them paint the entire house on the interior and do all the flooring, so everything was nice and new and looking awesome. And the insurance covered we had our deductible, and then they covered like 70% of the rest, or maybe 80% of the rest, because we did want some extra things done at the same time. So while it was all done and looking great from these professional contractors who did better work than we usually do, since they do it for a living, we decided that would be a good time to sell the property and try to recoup some of our profits there. So we sold the property on owner financing for just under $200,000. This was around 2017, the beginning of 2017. So we'd had tenants in there for a while. It took a long time to do the rehab, and we sold it on owner finance, got about 20% down, so around $40,000, and then we were collecting the monthly payments on that for the next several years on the owner finance note. Okay, cool note on how I structured the owner finance sale on this property. So I mentioned that a few years before that, I had refinanced it for around 120. It wasn't exactly that, it was a little less. And so at the time that we sold this on owner financing, I still owed a little over 110. I don't remember the exact numbers. We're going to call it 110. So I owed the money to this bank. Now we can still sell it on owner financing if we owe money, but it's more complicated and less clean. We can still do it. We do sometimes, but I didn't want to. So I wanted to pay off this $110,000, and I was only getting approximately $40,000 down payment. So I needed to come up with the difference to pay off this note. So at that point, I went to a different private money lender, not the one that I borrowed from in the beginning to purchase it, because that was a short-term deal. I went to somebody else that I knew that had some money in a retirement account, made sure that it was set up to be a self-directed retirement account, and we were able to have this person invest $50,000 into this property to help pay off the bank note. So if you're following along here, we paid off the bank note with $40,000 of down payment, $50,000 worth of private money. So now this private money is the first position lien on this property, and then we ended up paying out of pocket about $20,000 to finish paying that off. So at the time that we closed that sale, we ended up owing about $50,000 on the property to an investor, and we were owed about 160 that was still owed to us. So we wrapped our investor's note when we sold it. So hopefully you followed along there, but it's just another example of structuring really cool deals on the entrance and the exit side to make these creative finance deals work. When I started investing, I did not have a huge amount of money, so I had to get creative, and you can do a lot of cool things with private money and owner financing. So though the buyer had a good down payment, the ability to pay regularly was really hampered by this person's inability to stay out of jail. So in and out of jail, payments were coming and going. A loved one would bail out of foreclosure a couple times when we started foreclosure, and then the third time we did eventually get all the way to foreclosure. So though we collected payments for a while, there was quite a bit there left unpaid. And so even though we ended up getting this back, what had happened was the market went up significantly in those years between 2017 when the buyer purchased it and 2023 when we eventually got it back. And then we had to fix the property up. It was actually 2022, last year we got it back. Had to fix the property up again because there was some freeze damage. It wasn't as big of a rehab, but a few $1,000 here and there, a heater, some freeze damage, some cleaning, appliance missing, stuff like that. So we went in, got it all cleaned up. The market was significantly higher at that time, so we did really well. So over those years, the market went up so much that when we put this back on the market on owner finance again, we always can get a premium when we sell things on owner finance. We ended up selling it for just under $350 this time. So the market had gone up, from around $200 to $350 just in those 5 or 6 years. And so we got a nice down payment again. And then we've been getting our payments consistently since then. We've got some really solid buyers this time. So I don't anticipate that we'll be getting it back again. Because we've got solid buyers in there who are making their payments. They've already put thousands, maybe tens of thousands into work on this property. So they did end up putting on new decks and putting in a new bathroom and just making the place really cool, which is really exciting to see when you take a project to a certain level to where, it's appropriate for you to exit, and then the next people take it even further. So if they were to go to, to resell this property now, they'd end up making a profit because of the work that they put into it too, which is super cool. So it's really hard to calculate the profit on this because of all the different steps. Like when we first got into it, we were into it for about 120, and then we got rental income for a long time. But while we were doing that, we were also paying a mortgage, but it was still cash flowing, maybe around $800 a month after expenses. And then when those folks left, we put more money into it after the flood and the insurance thing. So then we were probably into it, for close to 150 total at that time, maybe a little bit less. I don't remember exactly what our deductible and how much we put into that. And then we sold it on owner financing, By the time we ended up getting it back and put some more money into it, there's more thousands there, but we're still significantly under 200 and have profited between down payment and everything else. And then when we resold it and got another down payment, we probably don't have a whole lot of money left into this deal, and we're still owed in the neighborhood of 300,000 plus the interest that we're charging on the owner finance, which is a reasonable interest rate, especially now that the bank interest rates have gone up so much. Our owner finance interest rates are very similar to those now too, and so over the years there's 6 figures there. So this was a really neat deal that we ended up using the private money strategy. We bought a foreclosure, we added equity, we sold it on owner finance, we ended up getting it back, we had it as a rental. Really neat deal where we've made, by the end of the day, several $100,000, just depending on how long this loan goes. And just a really neat opportunity to put some sweat equity into a place and structure cool deals, both on the entrance and the exit of the deal, to make really good long-term passive income. And if it ever turns to not passive, if they just cash us out, we'll have that lump of money to go invest into something else. So hope you guys enjoyed this. There's actually even more to this deal, but that's probably long enough video for now. It was a really fun, interesting deal, I thought, and hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.